My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Honda. Honda has revealed the new 11th Gen Civic SI, and I kind of was already prepared to be disappointed because they didn't make much of a fanfare about the Civic. Like even with the Type R, we can see spy shots of the interior and stuff like that. And Honda released some stuff of it, testing and photos and whatnot. And the only thing we got for the Civic was a video of a race car, which is not representative of the real thing. And then we got an announcement on Instagram the day before the car was revealed. And then we got the announcement. So the announcement itself was disappointing because we only received an article about either a minute or 40-second long video. I can't remember off the top of my head. And all it did was basically show the car driving around a CGI created test course. It's pretty trash. And usually automakers talk about the heritage and how it's going to be the best of the best. And Honda didn't even do that too much with its video. So now let's get into the press release. And it's titled, All New 2022 Honda Civic Brings Passion and Sets the Benchmark for Sport Compact Performance Sedans. And I don't know how it even sets the benchmark because it's not even at the bar at the moment. And I see lots of publications saying videos about how it's surprising and great and how they made huge performance gains in this. And that's just simply not the case here. But let's just start with the exterior. I was already sort of being prepared to be disappointed with the interior based off the leaks that we got from TFL. But yeah, I'm still disappointed here. We do get an all-new grille that's borrowed from the Civic hatch. I think that this grille looks better than the normal Civic sedan grille. We get the blacked out wheels, mirrors, and they also blacked out the trim on the door, the trim around the windows, which I can appreciate. The wheels, they're disappointing in my opinion because we always got unique wheels for the Civic Si, but they just took the wheels straight off of Sport, plopped it on here. And trying to search for more differences, you can find a couple more in the back right here. We get this racer looking rear wing spoiler. It's not my favorite. And right down below we get dual exhaust systems. The look of the exhaust aren't aggressive at all. They just took the exhaust straight off of Civic Sports, put another one right at the side of it, and called it a day. Really, my favorite thing about this exterior is that it's the orange color. I do like the orange. But other than that, I'm just disappointed with how unaggressive and not inspired that this interior looks. And it's okay that it's not like super over the top like a Type R. You can be understated. But if you look at cars like the Golf and the Golf GTI, the GTI still looks aggressive without looking boy racery. Even the N-line, it does a good job of looking more aggressive than the base Elantra. And we don't even have to look far in Honda's own lineup to find a more aggressive exterior. Just look at Honda Civic Sport with the HPD package. Like it's a little more aggressive than this in my opinion. And even last gen Civic hatchback, it just looks more aggressive than this. I think they dropped the ball and making this look like a true sporty vehicle in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Now let's get into the interior. So this is one of the best parts of the vehicle. I think this is probably the best part of the vehicle. But there's still a few downsides which I'll get into. So we get a nice leather wrapped steering wheel. I think the Sport or the EXL gets that, so that's good. Right behind that steering wheel, we get a 7-inch digital cluster. Canada markets, they get the new 10.2-inch digital cluster that the Sport Touring trim gets. You also get the 9-inch infotainment, which is great. I'm really happy that they put that on there. And one of the complaints I had with the normal Civic is that the 9-inch was only available on the top trims, which just didn't make any sense to me. I felt at least the EX should have gotten that. And with that 9-inch, you're going to be getting wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a nice convenience feature. And we also get the 12-speaker Bose system. I'm really happy that they put on it. I would love it if I was going to buy this vehicle. But keep in mind that Civics always got like the more premium audio system compared to the bass. So it kind of makes sense that they put this in there. We get nice metal aluminum pads for your manual driving. They did do this honeycomb trim. The same honeycomb trim. It's been growing on me. I didn't like it as much as first, but it's been growing on me. I kind of like it now. And they have the red accents. The red accents I can do without. It kind of cheapens the look in my opinion. And tries to make it more boy racerist than it should be. But I'm sure some people will like it. Looking a little bit closer, we have single zone AC. They took out this dual zone AC. We also got auto stop start. If you put the vehicle in sport, the auto stop start will be turned off, but you probably have to do it each time you turn on the vehicle. So that's something to note. You got recycled seats. Honda used the exact same seats from the 10th gen on the 11th gen. And for this one, they changed the color. I do like the color. It does match with the rest of the interior. Maybe I could have gone a little more black like the last gen. They kind of just kept it the same. But now is a good time to point out that they took away the heated seats that the previous 10th gen offered, which is pretty disappointing in my opinion. So yeah, pretty much it builds on the already pretty good interior of the base Civic, except that there's could be a few deal breakers for some people here. Like for some people who are married and have couples, the elimination of the dual zone climate might be a deal breaker for them. There's no heated seats. Many people who live in colder climates, they need the heated seats, and that might be a deal breaker for some because basically everything else offers heated seats. And also, why does Canada get the full digital display and heated steering wheel when the United States does not? It just doesn't make any sense. And then the Civic has also always been based on the EX trim. So why does it get features such as no heated rear seats and no dual zone climate when those are like some of the better features on the EX? It just doesn't make sense how they package this out. Personally, I'm a single person who lives in the southeastern climate, so I would probably give up those two features for the 9-inch display and the Bose stereo, but I feel like they still could have put those on here. It just doesn't make sense why they took those off. And now, probably the worst part, or at least the most disappointing part of this release. It's the powertrain. We were expecting an increase of around 10, 15, maybe up to 230 horsepower for this car. And what Honda did was they actually took away 5 horsepower from this 1.5 liter engine and 192 pound-feet of torques. And now we're making 200 horsepower. So meaning compared to the 8th gen Civic, this car only has 3 more horsepower than that 8th gen Civic, which is just basically disappointing. We blasted Subaru for adding 3 horsepower to the new WRX. Meanwhile, Honda didn't listen to anything that was said, and they took away 5 horsepower from this car. Just doesn't make any sense. And keep in mind that this car is also bigger, and also this car is going to be bigger and heavier than the 10th gen Civic. So this might even be slower in a straight line than that vehicle. But it may not be because they did make a bunch of changes to the engine and also the transmission, which I'll get to. So this engine makes 192 pound-feet of torque at 1,800 RPM, which is down from 300. So the torque is going to arrive 300 RPM sooner. The horsepower peak is now raised to 6,000 and also has a 6,500 RPM redline. So basically this car has a broader power band. And they also managed to keep this engine a little more fuel efficient. It has 27 mpg in the city, 37 mpg on the highway. The old Civic was about 6.8 seconds 0 to 60. Basically everything in the competition is under 6 seconds. I understand the Civic is supposed to be the handling one of the bunch, but it should be in the low 6 seconds by now. So hopefully some of this tuning made it even a little bit faster. I don't know why they couldn't have added just a little more horsepower and incorporated the power brand. One thing that they talked about in the press release was improving the sound of the engine. And this now includes a new dual coil silencer exhaust that increases the exhaust flow 27% from the Civic Touring. Keep in mind, it's from the Civic Touring. A lot of the things in the press release is a lot of marketing speak. And they compare the SI to the turbo trims of the Civic and not the previous gen SI and what improvements they made over that model. Why are they putting a silencer exhaust on here? the consumer has asked for a louder and better exhaust note on both the SI and the Type R, which are usually criticized for weaker exhaust compared to its competition. And to make this worse, they added active sound control on the system, which basically pipes in fake engine noise through the speakers. And from watching videos on Honda Civic 10th Gen Type Rs, you have to dig up the dash and the interior trims in order to turn off the switch for this. And it's just not good in my opinion. It's just disappointing. We do get the LSD. We do have a new single mass flywheel, which is supposed to be 26% lighter than the dual mass fly unit. It's going to give a better throttle response. The 6-speed has been updated for improved shift feel and 10% shorter throws. So hopefully that can help with the 0 to 60 times. Honda also talked about how they're going to how they took the rev match system from the Type R and put it on here. And they also talked about how they put in new brushings from the Type R, but it's kind of pointless to say that they're from the Type R because it's basically software and brushings, it's more insignificant stuff here. There's an 8% increase in torsional rigidity and a 13% increase in bending rigidity compared to the outgoing SI. Spring rates are 8% stiffer. And one thing that Honda mentioned was that how they have a new drive mode system, which includes the individual mode on top of the normal and sport touring modes for a customized driving experience. But now it's a good time to point out how they took out adaptive suspension, which is one of the only things that really set the previous Gen Civic apart from its competition. And it would have really worked well with the individual customizable modes because you can set the adaptive suspension to how you want it to drive. So it simply doesn't make sense why they took it out. That feature would have worked perfectly in this new Civic, but in the previous Gen Civic was the cheapest car with adaptive suspension, and now it's just not that anymore. So just a lot of questionable decisions made from Honda. Safety, you do get Honda Sensing Standard, which is pretty good. I forgot to mention that in the interior, there is a shot of blind spot monitoring. So it's nice that you get blind spot monitoring in the vehicle as well. And as I said before, I would also take the blind spot monitoring in exchange for the dual zone climate and heated seats in my personal case. But let's just get to my final thoughts on this vehicle. Honda has let their fans down and the consumer down with this product. This car has needed power for years. In fact, I'll even put up an article from a 10th Gen Civic SI reveal, and I'm sure many of the comments will say, oh, this vehicle needs more power. Why is it only 205 horsepower? Why didn't they add more performance to it? It's been at 200 horsepower for years, and they still did it with this. And I don't know how people are defending this, because if Toyota had done this with the BRZ and said, oh yeah, we just kept the same 205 horsepower that it already had, but we fixed the torque curve, which is a problem in that car, people would have been irate. There would have been fire in the streets because Toyota and Subaru didn't meet the customer demand. And overall, the exterior is let down with just how unaggressive and uninspired that the design elements feel. The interior is nice. I do like the Bose stereo system. I do like the 9-inch screen. I do like some of the safety tech and the blind spot monitoring that they offered, but they removed EX features that people would have wanted to have. It just doesn't make sense why they did that. And then the powertrain, they did make minor improvements to the powertrain, just the power band, and also the handling components, but the engine is a major letdown. And also, did they fix the rev hang issues? I was watching previous Civic reviews, and they talked about how rev hang was still an issue on those vehicles. So it doesn't make sense. And one of the things that people said why it's down in power is that is the thing about emissions. Well, it's a 1.5 liter turbo. Like, how much emissions are you spitting out? It doesn't make sense. It makes sense for a Mustang GT, which is a V8, but a 1.5 turbo? And another argument people make is that this car is supposed to be cheap. Well, that's perfectly okay. We do like cheap cars. But cars like the VW GLI was $26,000 for the base model. Cars like the WRX have 268 horsepower and have all-wheel drive, which is a more expensive platform than front-wheel drive. And that car starts at $28,000. Again, look at the BRZ. $27,000 or $28,000 basically is the starting price, and that has 230 horsepower and rear-wheel drive, and even an EcoBoost Mustang, 300 horsepower, 27,000 rear-wheel drive. Even though that some of these cars are different than the SI, of course, the point is that the goal of these cars here are to make driving enjoyable and to have fun in it. And those cars are able to supply the power necessary that people want. And this car Honda made the conscious choice just not to do that. And it could have been easy, such as adding better components or fixing pistons and cams and stuff like that to the existing 1.5 engine, or turning up the wick of the turbo. It should be easy to make power with a turbocharged engine. Maybe upgrading some of the clutch and other components in order to handle that power. But instead, they just reduced it by 5. And many people ask for the 2-liter in the Accord. Many people say that could have been expensive. But if you look at Honda's own website, it costs $4,000 from a Sport Accord to upgrade from the Sport into the 2-liter Sport. And that includes the engine, a 10-speed transmission, which is upgraded from the CVT, and also a bunch of luxury features. And if you take all those out and just stick with the engine, like it's not a crazy expensive feat in order for Honda to make this upgrade. Not only that, Honda has engineering from the Type R in previous gens of Type Rs to tell them what they need to do in order to make the power safely. So if you put X amount of power, we're going to need this, this, and this upgraded in order to handle the power. Another point that people make is that this is one is supposed to be the best handling car amongst its competitors, and I'm not sure that really separates it from its competitors, because as you can see, like all these cars, such as the GTI, Veloster N, Volkswagen, the GLI, all of these cars, these front-wheel drive vehicles, all of these cars handled pretty well. Like even from the Golf 7 GTI to the Golf 8, Volkswagen was able to make a 3-second improvement around the track, not because they got more horsepower, because they made the car better handling. So it's not going to be too much that differentiates that from a Civic Si. And keep in mind, the Civic Si is the longest wheelbase in its class. So these smaller cars might be more playful or more tossable in daily driving or driving around your favorite mountain roads. So, and the last point is that people make is that you can spend $700 in order to tune it, to get the power that it should have came with from the factory. But first of all, the $700 might is probably going to void the warranty. And not only that, you can spend the same $700 and do that to those other vehicles that are in this class, and those will probably have better gains in power because the engines are bigger compared to this 1.5 engine. And not only that, Honda could have made this. And again, back to my point that Honda could have made this safely and affordably. Like, they have the economy of scale. I think I used that term right in order to do this. They sell over 100K vehicles a year, which makes building something like this a little more easier. And I think they could even have made this more affordable by making some of these new technologies optional. You know, you could have taken out the 9-inch screen, the Bose stereo, and even stuff like the blind spot monitoring, along with also the dual zone climate and stuff like that, in favor of more stock performance. And people would have been perfectly fine if those things were optional on the vehicle. So personally, I think Honda had many choices in order to make this car great, but they chose not to. And overall, I'm just left feeling uninspired, disappointed, and I'm just not really feeling the vehicle. Maybe because the vehicle I wanted was a mini Type R or a poor man's Type R. But meanwhile, the vehicle that we got was a Civic Sport with a trim on it. And I'm honestly more disappointed in this car than the WRX. And I feel like all the reviews say that this car is one of the best driving in terms of driving dynamics. And I feel like Honda had missed the opportunity to address the criticisms that came with the last vehicle and just make the power a little bit better and have the driving dynamics that this car has along with it. I feel like this was done because of the Integra. The Integra is coming pretty soon, and that's going to be basically a hatch version of the SI. Maybe they put more power and a better tune on it. I would predict it's supposed to have a mild hybrid system, so maybe that might separate it from this a little bit. But then again, they're probably going to charge you like $3,000-$4,000 more than this. and this vehicle is probably coming in at like $27,000 if they increase it by 500 compared to last gen. So future me here, I just wanted to say that I don't think that the Civic SI is necessarily a bad car. Like I was pretty harsh on it in this video. If you're looking to buy something like a Hyundai Elantra N-line or a Kia Forte GT, I would definitely, and you have the extra money, I would definitely scratch those off your list and get this. You're probably going to get a nicer interior, better driving dynamics, you get an LSD, so those things are worth it in my opinion. If you're looking at a Civic Sport and you are an enthusiast, you want to drive the manual, you want the nicer interior, the 9-inch touchscreen, the Bose audio, I would definitely get this, and I think this offers the best interior even over like a GTI and some of its other competitors. And with those cars, you have to spend over $30,000 in order to get those niceties. However, where this falls short, in my opinion, is the performance. And overall, like I explained in the video multiple times, I think that Honda could have just done a lot more and given us some more performance under the hood. And overall, the car would have been complete. But currently, I think the car is lacking in these certain aspects because they failed to really do too much with the updated powertrain. But that's just my 2 cents. That's just my rant and ramble aside. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some sort of useful information about it. And are you as disappointed with the car as I am, or are you completely happy with it? Other than that, this is Carburetor, I guess. Signing out. Peace.